Well, the predictions for how this upcoming winter could play out have been out there since practically the end of last winter.
Steve tells us, though, forecasting the character of an entire season is incredibly tricky business. He's here now to apply some science to the process with his 2014-2015 winter seasonal outlook. All right, Steve, let's spill it.
Well, I tell you what, it is very, very tricky for sure. So we'll jump right in. Let me define for you what I'm doing here. I'm looking specifically at the period December to March, and it's a projection of what's more likely this winter season compared to the 30-year average. It's not a forecast of individual storms or storm frequency or cold snaps, as those things have very short-term predictability. So we typically start a seasonal outlook like this by looking at what's happening in the equatorial Pacific Ocean and sea surface temperatures specifically. And this year, the forecast is for a very weak El Nino to develop, and an El Nino is above average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. Last year, we had neutral conditions. This year, water temperatures warmer than average. It's not quite there yet, but we are heading in that direction. So it looks like an El Nino winter force, and typically the kind of pattern that can set up across the North American continent and the U.S. specifically during El Nino years is something like this. We get kind of a juiced up subtropical or Pacific jet stream, so we see a lot of moisture across the south. We see warmer than average temperatures across the Pacific Northwest and the Plain States, big pool of drier than average conditions here, but very little statistical predictability for any one type of favored weather across the Northeast. Now, I did look back since 1950 at all the weak El Nino winters, and we've had 8, and out of the 8, 5 of them here have featured near to much above average snowfall, and 3 of them with below average snowfall. So we know something else must be going on here, and that something else is very likely what happens in the North Atlantic, something called the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is essentially just a positioning of upper level high pressure and low pressure in the upper latitudes here. And in a strong negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation, we see a big area of high pressure over Greenland, what we call the Greenland block, and that typically causes the jet to collapse across the east. Colder than average conditions and snowier than average conditions are favored. The reverse of that, the positive phase, has less snow and warmer than average conditions. The issue with this is very short-term predictability, 10 to 14 days max. So this is a big, big wild card for us as we head into the winter season. So the assumptions I'm making, there'll be a weak El Nino and a variable NAO pattern, meaning it'll flip-flop back and forth. So based on that, I'm thinking the current mild pattern that kind of kicked in September is likely to continue through early winter, December, maybe January, and then we'll have a colder, snowier, late winter period. So February, March, maybe into April. In terms of the storm track, we'll probably see a lot of split flow, weaker Clipper systems across the north, bigger systems across the south, a lot of mid-Atlantic development, but a lot of misses. But every now and again, because there'll be a lot of moisture available across the south, especially when the NAO switches phase, we're going to phase these jet streams together, and that's how you get some of these big East Coast storms. So it could be a winter punctuated by a couple of big hits from snow, but also a lot of low snow Clipper type systems, and also a lot of misses. So in summary here, I'm thinking the December to March period will be a late, make that a late start and a late finish to the winter. I'm thinking it's about a 7 in 10 chance of above average temperatures averaged out through this multi-month period. So less cold than last year. In terms of storminess and snowfall, I'm thinking a 60% chance we'll see a winter with above average snowfall. And to put that in perspective, average is 59.1. Last year we had 73.5 inches of snow. So we shall see. So it looks warmer than last year. It could be as snowy as last year. Above average temperatures, maybe above average snowfall.
But people want a black and white answer. Good winter, bad winter. It's too subjective.
It's very subjective. I mean, somebody that's a winter weather enthusiast, you know, getting multiple storms and 100 inches of snow, it's a great winter to them. But somebody that's commuting to work all the time, it's a bad winter to them. So good, bad, it's all based on our own personal perceptions as to how the winter and storms affect us individually. So we'll all make up that personal decision. We can check back in April.
Half empty, half full.
Half empty, half full, exactly.
Main takeaway there. All right. Thank you very much, Steve.